So for sure many of you have wondered why I haven't uploaded a video for such a long time. Long story short, I have filmed about 3 or 4 or 5 hours of raw material on last Sunday, but it has about negative 16 degrees in the garage at that time, and yeah, the whole footage was lost. So I'm going to film it all again. Stay tuned for that, and now let's continue with today's video. So not only because of the camera issues, our number one priority will be to get the shop a little bit warmer. I personally don't have a really big problem with cold weather, but especially in the last few days I had to do really small and fiddly stuff where you can't really use gloves. And when it comes to a point where you can't really grip small objects because your fingers are just too cold, it gets really annoying. So let me show you my solution to the problem. So what you see here is an oil burner. I don't know if you're familiar with things like this, but they were pretty common in the 70s and 80s. It's basically just a 10-liter tank where you can put in diesel or heating oil. There are some fuel lines going over down here into this burning container. It's pretty much just a steel tube where the oil is burning inside, it gets hot and it emits the heat to the environment. So what I really love about these things is that you can burn pretty much anything in here. Even some old engine oil will work, and it's really safe. So with a wood stove in this kind of size, you always have the problem when the wood flashes up because of left water in the wood. There are sparks going out the back here, so you definitely need some kind of chimney. And in a wood shop like here, it's pretty difficult to get the chimney out without burning anything. But there are no sparks with oil, so it's perfectly safe. And because the garage is really well ventilated right now, because I basically don't even have doors yet, there is also not a really big risk with the gases coming from it that you breathe in. So in the end, it's not really more than driving some kind of Volkswagen diesel car. I don't have a problem with that. One more thing before we start with today's project. I have to say thank you once again. At first I want to say thank you to my wife, who have bought me this awesome drill press here. It's a little one, but it's really fine for the small projects that we are doing right here in the garage, and it's definitely better than my cordless drill I used in the last videos. Last but not least, I really want to say thank you to my Patreons. On my Patreon page I've promised to spend every dollar I earn on Patreon to get my videos a little bit better, get better tools, better equipment, and because of you guys I was able to buy a welding machine once again. So in our future project we don't have to soft solder some nails or screws together like we did in the last ones. And I can't thank you enough for supporting my channel in such a cool way and giving some of your hard-earned money so that I can continue making videos for you. The really positive side regarding the cold weather in the last few weeks is that I'm pretty much finished with the Postapocalyptic online store. I'm pretty sure at this point that I can launch it in the next week. And as I promised, in the store I will sell things that we make in the garage here. Things you have seen in our videos, like this little bearded axe here, which so many of you ask in the comments. The link to the online store will be sent to my Patreons at least 1 week prior to the official release. So Patreon members, stay tuned for that. And every one of you who is not a Patreon supporter yet, please check it out. Please consider donating just a little amount of money, because $1 a month don't hurt you and it helps me a lot. Need to get some new diesel somewhere. Okay, so before you go in completely berserk in the comment section and tell me that it's not good for my health with having diesel fuel in my mouth or something like that, I can assure you that the clip that I just showed you was not really real. And anyone who grew up in the time that I grew up knows how to siphon fuel from a car. We did it on a regular basis to get fuel for our mopeds. Not saying that it is good to steal, but in those times it was kind of normal. Apart from the fact that I'm sure that everyone who has tried to siphon fuel out of a car get a mouthful of fuel once or twice, and to get it completely straight, it's not as big of a deal to get some fuel in your mouth. It's not really pleasant, but as long as you are not swallowing it or doing this kind of stuff once or twice a day for the next 2 or 3 years, it's not going to hurt you really bad. But if you really think about all of that in the context of a post-apocalyptic scenario, there are a few really big issues with that. Accidentally swallowing fuel in today's world, where you have really good medical treatment, is not a really big deal at all. Just go to the doctor, tell him that you were a really big idiot, swallowing some fuel, and he will treat you and you will be okay. But if there is no doctor to treat you, and if there is not really much food around, and you keep throwing up for the next 24 hours, it can be a problem. To be exact, it's really likely that you are going to die.
What's the point of this video? Just buy a siphon pump, you dickhead. It's cheap and it will help you. Stop making dumb videos like this. P.S. Start building things and stop talking shit. Fuck you, man.
We are men. We buy no siphon pumps. Siphon pumps are for pussies. We take a garden hose, put it in a tank, put the other end in our mouth, and we suck on it. That's pretty much the most manly thing you can do. But when shit finally hits the fan, another really manly skill would be to know how to construct a siphon pump. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. As in most of my last videos, I will use some leftover parts from my building site nearby. So I gathered together some copper pieces used to solder together your water lines, and they are really great. They are modular, you can find them basically everywhere, and they are really good for not creating sparks, especially when you siphon gasoline out of a car. You don't really want to create sparks. So building this whole thing out of steel is probably not the best idea. In addition to that, we will use some clear see-through hose. It's not really necessary that it's clear, but it will work really well for demonstration. But you can use basically every garden hose laying around your yard. And we are also going to need a little glass marble, like this thing here, which I've just stolen from my daughter. Things like the diameter of this reducers here, and also the size of the marble you use strongly depend on what are you going to use the device for. For example, when you're going to use it on cars, what I not recommend, the outside diameter of those fittings should be not bigger than the opening of the tank of your car, and the marbles should fit inside. It should have plenty of room here in the big part, but it have to be big enough to not fall through on the small end. So enough boring talking from me, just get on with today's project. Okay, so now we're pretty much finished and I have to point out two major things. Point number one, I can't soft solder copper pipe. Tried it at least 1000 times, failed at least that often, just can't do it, but it's pretty much air and watertight. It don't looks pretty, but it will do its job. The second thing which you're going to ask yourself is, why use a glass marble? Point one, you have to use something that sinks in the liquid. So a rubber ball or a wood ball or something like that wouldn't work, because when you have it like this in your tank, it will rise up and it will block the outlet and not the inlet. So this whole thing will work not really at all. Of course you can also use some steel balls from a bearing or something, but I've decided to use glass because we have already used copper to don't create a spark, so why putting a steel ball in there? Glass is definitely not creating any spark, so it was the perfect choice for me. So to show you the concept of our pretty little contraption here, I have built up these two see-through plastic containers. In the upper one we have water, which simulates the fuel in our tank. In the bottom one we have nothing, so this is our canister, we try to fill that up. And they are both see-through, so you should be able to pretty much see what we are doing. The principle of it is really easy. You just submerge it into the tank. As you can see right now, the glass marble has sunk to the bottom, and it's blocking the path in for the fuel right now. Now we're just going to insert the bottom side here in our container, and it pretty much should be enough to shake this contraption up and down. And as you can see, water is flowing pretty good. It's also pretty fast, I have to admit. Okay guys, so it looks like our little contraption here has worked really good so far. I really hope you liked today's video. As I said in the beginning, if you want to be one of the first who has the opportunity to visit our Postapocalyptic online store and buy some stuff from it, be sure to check out our Patreon page. There's also some pretty cool stuff, mainly from my day-to-day life, on our Facebook page, so you should also check that out. All links, as always, in the description below. And at last, the morale from today's story, and also what you should really learn from this video. If you're going to steal other people's fuel, be responsible. Use one of these, don't harm yourself. Have a nice evening guys, and goodbye.